addition to the gait rate that we will be using in Lab 4, students would also be participating in manual measurement of stride rate, stride lengths, and step lengths, and step rates as well. And so there's a couple things to note. When we're talking about a step, it is from the footfall or the heel touch on one foot, so for example the right foot, to the next subsequent heel touch or footfall. So from right to left, that is going to be your step length, and the time it takes you to do that is going to be your step time. When we're talking about stride length, it is from the first footfall on the right foot to the next footfall on the right foot, or the first footfall on the left foot to the next footfall on the left foot. So that would be your stride length, and the time that it takes you to do that would be your stride time. When we're talking about stride rate, walking or running stride rate, that is going to be 1 second divided by your stride time. And so you'll want to make sure that you get that properly recorded on your data sheet. Something else to note, when we're talking about step lengths and it says right, that means that that is the right foot that is actually moving. That does not mean that when you plant your right and your left foot is the one who's actually doing the step, that you're recording for your right. That would actually be your left that is moving. So you'll just have to keep that in mind when you're filling out your data sheet. What we would normally do is we would have all 4 group members participating in this lab. One individual would be the participant that would actually be walking or running. You can see that we have a long tape measure laid out on the undergraduate floor right now. 2 other investigators would be tasked at placing a marker when they see, for example, their right heel hitting and the next subsequent right heel hitting for the stride in that case, and 1 other investigator would be taking the time. I've seen many combinations of how students go about doing this in the past, and usually we just let them find the best method for their group. However, I would suggest, not doing any crazy, obscure things when you're doing this test. So the weirdest thing I've ever seen is, a group come up with an idea that once the person steps, someone's going to throw a pencil, another one's going to see the pencil thrown, start the timer, and then when they take the next step, they'll throw a pen instead of a pencil, and then they'll take time. Don't get into anything like that, okay? Just try to keep it as simple as possible. However, we're going to show you today what it's going to look like if you would be doing this at home and maybe you only have one other person to help. And so in that case, myself as the investigator is going to have to put some sort of marker. I'll probably just use pens or pencils down each time that Christy's foot hits the ground. And I'm actually going to have Christy holding these stopwatches, and she's going to know, she will feel when her foot hits. And so she's going to have a stopwatch in each hand so that she can help do that timing. And we'll probably do repeated trials on this just to make sure that we have a good rhythm and we have a good system. And I would encourage you to do that at home as well. If you happen to be at home and it's only you and one other person that you were able to recruit from your family or a roommate, then I would advise that you get a few things to do your measurements with. Hand over the stopwatches to whoever happens to be your participant, because that's going to be easiest. If you have someone else, they can use the stopwatches. And then you're just going to have the participant walk by. You're going to do your very best to record where her steps are, and then you could look at step length and stride length, keeping in mind that 1 stride is a gait cycle or 2 steps is a gait cycle. So whenever you're ready. I totally missed it that time. Okay, we'll have to try again. Okay, so that time I only got 2 markers down, so I would have only been able to record her step length in that case, because it was from 1 foot to the next heel strike of the next. So I will get better as we practice. Okay, so that was a little bit better. So in between these 2 pencil marks would have been 1 step, and in between here and the next subsequent footfall on the same foot would have been a stride. And then Christy would look at her stopwatches and she would tell me what the time was when she hit here and then when she hit here, and we would be able to record that. The only thing is if you are wanting to record the time for stride time, then you will have to instruct the participant not to hit the stopwatch in that next subsequent football. So for example, if you wanted to record stride, you would have to hit it with the right, don't hit it with the left, and then hit it with the right, just so that you get the proper stride time. And then for the
Gait,
you would take 1 second and divide it by that stride time in order to get your value in meters per second. Something else that you always want to think about with this lab is step back for a second. Does this make sense? So if you are getting a step time of 1.5 seconds, that is not correct. If you are getting a horizontal velocity of 300 meters per second, also not correct. So always good to just take a step back. Okay, so this time we are going to do stride time. Just press your stopwatch when you're close to meet when a foot hits, whether it be left or right, and then the next subsequent time that same heel hits. And we'll go from there. Okay, so she actually got the time, but I did not do the same stride. So this is going to happen if you are doing it from home, but once you get better at it, then it will kind of all come together. Okay, so that one was much better. So you might have to take a second to actually plan it out with the participant, or do 4 or 5 trials to see which foot is hitting here, and then position your body as the investigator. But ultimately, the purpose of doing the manual measurement is so that you realize how lucky we are that we have a Gait system that will actually take all of these measurements for us. This is a great way to have students do it hands-on. However, unless you have a group of 4 or at least a group of 3, it's very difficult to do all of the measurements by yourself. If you're at home and you're trying this out, just do the very, very best that you can. And keeping in mind when we're dealing with the stride, it would be, for example, right heel fall to the next subsequent right heel fall, whereas a step would be right heel fall to the next left heel fall. And if you had 2 steps or 1 stride, that would be 1 gait cycle.
this is much harder than it looks, so we truly appreciate the Gait mat.